Okay, again, hello everyone. It's now 11:03. I don't want to keep waiting because I want Debbie to have her entire. You're not. Oh, I'm not on mute. Okay, I want Debbie to have her entire 55 minutes so that she can speak with her wonderful topic. Debbie, you are muted, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thanks to everybody at miniVAte for bringing me on. I hope you can see my screen. Yes, Charlene?
Yes, we can.
Super. Okay. So then I'm going to jump right in because my talk runs about 45 or so minutes. So I'll use the end for Q&A. If you don't get your question answered by me, my email is on the bottom of every slide. Please email me. I'd love to answer your questions. I am here for you. So quick introduction to me. I'm Debbie Levitt, and I'm not going to be watching the chat while I talk, so I'll catch it later. I've been working in CX and
excuse me,
yeah.
Debbie. In the chat, people are saying that your audio is really quiet, really low. They cannot hear you. So is there any way you can increase your volume?
Yeah, give me a moment to change that out. People in the chat, how does this sound?
Much, much better. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody. I love feedback. Don't wait for the retro. Be proactive. All right, let me start over then for future video editing. So hi, everybody. I'm Debbie Levitt, and I'm from Delta CX. We're a full-service CX and UX agency, and I've been doing the CX and UX thing since 1995. Who remembers 1995? Hands up. I'm a strategist, architect. I do a lot of training and speaking, but I still do the work. And clients like to call me Mary Poppins because I fly in, fix everything I can, sing a few songs, and then fly away to where I'm needed next. This is improving agility by using customers' definitions of quality and done, and runs about 45 minutes, so maybe a little bit longer. So I'll do my best to get to the questions at the end. I won't be watching the chat during the presentation. So let's jump in. Also, quick note, if you enjoy this and you'd like to connect with me, please do find me on LinkedIn. Looks like this, except more Photoshop. And you can also find me on YouTube, where I go live usually 4 times a week, including right after this. And that's the Delta CX YouTube channel, and including Tuesday office hours, where I answer every question. And you'll also see a little camera icon coming up on my slides. That just lets you know my slide is done animating. So people who like to take screenshots of slides or camera phone pictures of slides, now's a good time when you know no more animations are coming. UX. And you'll also notice that I'm saying CX where you might expect to hear UX. They're nearly the same thing, but CX has risen up over the past few years as a term that's broader and probably more appropriate for what we do, but I'll explain that a little bit more later. And I hope the sound of my fan isn't bothering anybody here, but it is hot here today. So let's jump in. Agile has definitions of done and quality that are supposed to be about making sure the product is done right and is high quality. But in our agile world, how do we define quality? Velocity, productivity, and efficiency? Improved software performance? Fewer no bugs? Meet stakeholder requirements? What about our definition of done? We did what we planned, it fit business objectives, it's coded, tested, documented, and deployable. There's something huge missing here. Does our product match our users' and customers' definitions of quality or done? Does it fit their tasks and needs? Did the system optimize or complicate a workflow? Excuse me. Spring allergies. Quickly. How do you decide when an experience you're having at a restaurant is a high or low quality experience? It could be the look or the design of the restaurant, how the staff treat you, how the place smells, how clean it seems to be, the presentation of the food, the price of the food, the flavor of the food, how you feel a few hours after eating the food, and more. You have multiple criteria for quality in nearly everything in your life. Our users and customers have lots of criteria that they use to judge our products and services. So why do we use the minimum viable definitions of quality and and done. Code with few or no bugs can be called quality code, but food without bugs can still be low quality food. Poor quality ingredients, bad recipe, bad chef, or any combination of these can kill our restaurant experience even if we didn't find bugs. When we're disconnected from how our users and customers define quality and done, we are going down the wrong path. We claim that we're focused on customer satisfaction, supporting and empowering our teammates, and allowing time in our processes for good or great design, and also being lean by cutting waste and reducing work that we shouldn't do. But I've pretty much never seen these happening anywhere that I've worked or my friends have worked. Are these really happening on your team? Are we using retros to identify problems and waste and then truly fixing those problems and cutting that waste? We fill our world with catchy sayings that we use as excuses when we're not agile, lean, or building what customers would give 5 stars out of 5. Just ship it, often without knowing if it's the right solution for our customers. We'll fix it later. How often do we really fix it later? When is later? What will we have to delay and what will it cost? Users will have to figure it out, or they will flood you with support tickets, or they'll cancel, leave, or give up. Fail fast. There's nothing cool about failing fast or slowly when paying or trial customers have to suffer with your failure. If you're not embarrassed, you shipped too late. Does this mean that our goal is to be embarrassed by our product? Most of us would prefer to feel proud that our product is a great match to our customers' needs and tasks. Lean is the least we can do to get us to the next step. Lean disagrees. This is a bastardization of lean that seemed to come from the Lean Startup book. Anybody who has studied Toyota's original approach to lean, or of course Lean Six Sigma, knows that lean is about identifying and cutting waste. Fake lean is wasteful and takes us down wrong paths, which means we should cut fake lean for not being lean. Move fast and break things. Sure, only if you fix those things before the public is struggling with them. It's good enough for the engineering team, for stakeholders, or for paying or trial customers. We've been experimenting with speed over quality methods for years now, and it should be pretty clear from our project costs, ROI, customer support tickets, tweets about us, our stock price, and other hints that this probably isn't always working. We must stop praying to the false gods of speed and give your customers broken things. We must stop using these as excuses for low effort or failures. We must focus on Agile Manifesto principle number 1. Our highest priority is customer satisfaction. When I speak at engineering, agile, and lean conferences, I ask the audience full of engineers to raise their hands if they've ever known while building something that it wasn't right for target users. I can't see you, but go ahead and raise your hand, because usually every hand in the room goes up. They know they're building something of poor quality that might have to be fixed or undone later, but nobody feels empowered to say anything. Like assembly line robots, they're being judged by how much they get done. Creating a higher quality product means spending more time and money up front. Instead, someone declares, we'll fix it later. We hide that fix in another budget, but we call the original project that caused the problems a success. And isn't it amazing that we never have time to create a better product now, but we'll have time later to stop a future project to fix this old one? If our systems aren't right for every user interacting with them, can we congratulate ourselves for having an efficient engineering process? If Agile is supposed to be about welcoming change even later in a process, why do we reward silence and avoid holding people accountable for disaster projects? Workers and teams who are afraid to stop a project that's likely to fail signify culture problems that'll need improvement. In the old days, when what the customer needed didn't overlap what the business wanted to sell people, you built what the business wanted. You hired more marketing and salespeople to figure out how you were going to make people think they want this. Those are the dinosaur days, but they're not extinct just yet. Therefore, instead of our Venn diagram looking like customers' needs and business goals are on two distant islands, we must bring these together. That's not done by pushing customers into what we think we can sell them or what we can force or trick them into doing. It's done by shifting business goals, strategies, and initiatives to better match our customers. It's done by making customer centricity part of our strategy. It's done by CX and UX. CX and UX, aren't those the people who keep inviting me to these workshops and interrupting my work to try to create empathy? Sadly, they might be, but I'm doing everything I can to burn that time-wasting workshop crap to the ground. When you think about people who work in CX or UX, you probably imagine artsy-fartsy hipsters who sketch screens or make screens pretty. But most of us aren't artsy-fartsy hipsters. And there's a lot more going on in CX and UX than many people realize. The core and foundations of our work are cognitive psychology and human behavior, not art. Mitigating risk. The main process most CX and UX practitioners use is called UCD, user-centered design. You'll sometimes see this as HCD, human-centered design. It's got a lot of phases, including research, content strategy, information architecture, interaction design, usability testing, and iteration. Each phase has multiple tasks that can be done. CX professionals approach this process strategically, deciding which tasks are needed, how long those will take, in what order we'll do them, and what resources are required. Order does matter here because each phase is informed by the phases that came before it. Our research informs everything we do later. You'll also hear a lot about models that say learn, build, and test. That's an oversimplification considering all of the steps that really go into learning, building, and testing. But this is all baked into our process. You're already familiar with what we call interaction design. This is our wireframes, prototypes, the blueprints of how this lays out, how it works, and how people can interact with it. But you might not know about all of the other phases of our process that make our interaction design work good. If we care about quality, then we care about the quality of the process and the outcomes it can create. It's also why when we're asked to just guess at the build phase and make some wireframes, often without researching or testing, it's another high-risk guessing adventure that's likely to lead our company or project down the wrong path. It's the lean sin of underutilized talent when we only budget enough time for CX or UX to guess at screens when there's so much risk mitigating science and technique in our process. Research is the most important CX phase. It's not user-centered without users. We primarily want to observe them since you can learn a lot more about who people are and their tasks, needs, and goals by watching them. Interviews are excellent when we ask the right questions the right ways, but since what people say and what people do aren't the same, ever notice that? Observational studies are best. Statistics and quantitative data are nice, but there's no substitute for observing and interviewing users, deeply understanding them, and getting qualitative data. CX wants to know what, why, how, and not just how many. Every step of research is important. Planning, writing interview and task guides, recruiting participants, executing the research, interpreting it, evaluating what we found, and arriving on actionable insights. You can see how different that is from, we just asked a few users what they want and we're building what they said. Researchers find the root causes and all of their outcomes and consequences. Researchers are problem-finding detectives. Usability testing happens during our process and before engineering writes a line of code. We need to make sure that this is the idea and the execution of the idea that's fantastic for our target users. We don't want engineering to build it until we're sure this is what should be built. Testing is the QA of CX. We don't skimp on or exclude QA testing for our code, even if our developers are really smart and talented. So why would we rush out untested product concepts? Usability testing will bring to light any flaws, giving CX the chance to iterate on ideas. Iteration and refinement are a mini cycle of their own. Build, test, learn. And you can also start to understand why, if you see UX as wireframing or prototyping some screens, which is one task from one phase of user-centered design, a broader term like CX might help people better understand the whole of what we do. All the customer knows is the customer experience. That's it. They don't see 1,000 developers or whether you were agile or lean. They don't know if you had an agile mindset, a project mindset, a product mindset, or any other mindset or religion. They only know the system or site you expected them to use. What's the last website, app, or system you used that you really loved? It solved your problems. It helped you get your tasks done efficiently. It's hard to think of one, isn't it? Would your users put your products and systems on their list of what they really love? We want that answer to be yes. When you use a system that frustrates you, you're probably not thinking, I wonder how many sprints they spent on that. When something doesn't work the way you expected it to, you're probably thinking, who built this junk? And that's a good question. Who researched with users like you to learn your habits, motivations, tasks, needs, and then architect and design for those? Was this tested on people like you before it was unleashed on the public? Our coworkers, managers, leaders, and executives very rarely see the science and technique or the strategy that go into CX and UX work. They see wireframes, pretty screens, sketches, whiteboards, and walls of sticky notes. So they think UX makes screens, but anybody can make wireframes and decide how this looks and works. But my phases of proficiency model is really an iceberg where people are used to seeing just the tip of the iceberg without understanding what's going on below the surface. The iceberg model explains why Agile and Scrum coaches keep telling me that UX has easy work that anybody can do, like paper prototypes. This is so easy, anybody can do it, means we're in building block land, ignoring the quality of the work being done, and ignoring the body of the iceberg, the cognitive psychology, interaction design, information architecture, accessibility, and other concepts, best practices, and skills that we need to create excellent interaction designs. And hey, I learned some basic programming in 1979. I should have done my hair like that. I learned HTML in 1995. I'm passionate about engineering, so I can code to production, right? Or am I just in the building blocks phase of proficiency? If you are squirming in your seat at the idea of your engineers having to work with or check my code, and I have a degree in music, then you know what CX and UX are thinking every time we hear, anybody can do our work, or that engineers and product managers making some wireframes will be good enough for our customers. Side note, I never make paper prototypes because they aren't realistic. I don't ask people to react to sketches because they're too far from how users expect a product to look or work. I use Axure, hashtag not sponsored, to make realistic, I pay them, highly interactive digital prototypes. How can I do decent research or testing if I'm showing people non-interactive paper? If our product isn't paper-based, then a paper prototype probably isn't the right tool or building block for the job. But if we give our teammates a little training in CX, can they do some CX work? Should the product manager make wireframes, the business analyst interview users, or engineers delay coding to do design? I have an easy method to determine if we should give CX work to a product manager, engineer, or other non-CX role. If you had an open full-time job at your organization in CX or UX, would that non-CX role qualify for that job? No? They wouldn't qualify to work in CX or UX full-time at your company? Then we don't give them CX tasks or work of any kind. It's one of many reasons why you don't hand me a DevOps book and then ask me to deploy a Kubernetes cluster. You wouldn't allow roles outside of DevOps to experiment with DevOps tasks. We shouldn't do this with CX. Trying to retrofit the wrong person into important tasks is bad for process, product quality, and user satisfaction. And efficiency. Teammates stopping what they're doing to guess at my work will then get less of their own work done. A qualified CX expert will be more efficient at CX tasks than somebody else guessing at my work and stopping their mission-critical work to do it. A cost-benefit analysis should drive that point home. Also, you can't have it both ways. You can't believe in an agile that treats humans like assembly line robots, measuring them by efficiency, productivity, and how much they got done in a period of time, and then expect them to get less engineering work done to spend time guessing at CX and UX tasks. A long slide on Aspirologies. Because we care about user-centered design being done correctly, we need to talk about some trendy approaches that pretend to be CX or UX, but are sometimes quite the opposite. Aspirologies is my made-up word for pseudo-methodologies that aspire to greatness, but will only end up as soon-forgotten trends. We're not going to optimize products or improve our agility if we're using the wrong approaches or methods. The main aspirologies you will run into are design sprints, design thinking, and so-called lean UX, which is neither lean nor UX. Aspirologies have some common characteristics you can easily recognize. Codependency. Seems to need everybody to do their job with and for them. Disrespect of teammates' time. Aspirology workshops or exercises require teammates to stop what they're doing for hours or days. Reliance on assumptions. Aspirologies prioritize speed over quality. They increase business and project risk by running with guesses, thinking that'll save time. Giving specialized work to non-specialists. Aspirologies love workshops where CX and UX work are done by those without CX and UX knowledge, experience, expertise, skill, or talent. But where else would we do that? We don't hold workshops where everybody, including me, gets to co-decide the back-end database architecture. Democratizing or decentralizing CX is completely fake. Many non-CX roles demand to have authority and decision-making power over the user experience, yet those roles never give up power or decisions in their own domain. We don't have the cross-functional team all making engineering decisions. Magically, the cries for democracy are only for CX and UX. They apply to no other domain, which is how we know this is fake. Fake customer centricity. We pretend that we really care about customers and their satisfaction, but we guess at who they are and what they need. We don't observe or research the people we're building for. We pretend we have empathy or sympathy, but if we really cared about user experience, we wouldn't rush out garbage that doesn't solve customers' problems and improve their task accomplishment. Innovation and solution theater. How many never before seen world premiere ideas came out of these workshops? How many solutions were non-viable, wrong, or based on guesses versus being based on proper research? Vote for the winner. Somehow we don't all need to get together, brainstorm a bunch of product roadmaps, and then vote on our favorite product roadmap. And we shouldn't pick features, products, or concepts like this is American Idol. Emotional outcomes. Everybody enjoyed the workshop, but where are the real budget and ROI figures? What was our success criteria for the workshop and what came out of it? Did we even have a success criteria? And enough buzzwords to thrown in so that it sounds like CX or even Agile when it's not. You'll hear about customer journeys, personas, problem solving, prototypes, and testing. But this is all just building blocks and theater. You'll hear Agile buzzwords like, here's something we can do in a sprint. But there's a lot more to Agile than did we do something within a 1-week time box. Collaboration is great, but design by committee, design thinking, design sprints, lean UX, and other aspirologies are wasteful and not as customer-centric as they claim to be. With our short session today, I don't have time to go into more detail on that, but if you're curious, I've got literally hours of content on this on the Delta CX YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube, write Delta CX, and then whatever you're thinking of, and search, and you'll hear all my thoughts. So how do we bring customer centricity into Agile and improve our agility? In various flavors of Agile, CX is often a square peg someone is either trying to hammer into a round hole or it's being taken off the board and thrown away for not fitting in. Siloed, excluded. We work differently than engineering. We have a different process, different goals and tasks. Instead of working to understand that and improve processes and collaboration, Flavors of Agile often just try to control CX. This is going to cause conflict, completely avoidable conflict. It wouldn't make sense for any one domain to demand that all other domains plan, think, prioritize, or work like they do. This guy on LinkedIn commented that UX is just like development. We both have strategies, tactics, deadlines, and dependencies. Well, that would make nearly everything like nearly everything. But he continues by saying that developers have to do the UX while waiting for the UX team to ideate in their ivory tower. We are never going to collaborate well or have the culture DevOps dreams of if this is how developers see UX. We're never going to prioritize customer satisfaction if engineers can't respect the risk mitigating work we're doing. Great teamwork requires understanding of what each other does, valuing that, and respecting each other. Someone who thinks I'm in an ivory tower and separate from reality truly has no idea what my job is supposed to be. He just wants it fast, and he'll happily pretend that UX is like engineering and that devs can do all of our work. This is the UX. And this engineer is sure he doesn't need any experts or specialists spending any time on it. It's okay if he and his buddies guess at it. This guy's confident beliefs can help you see more of the problems you probably have with culture, collaboration, giving CX and UX the time they need, proper planning, and so much more. Engineers are rarely doing the UX well, and they're probably not doing the UX based on customers' definitions of quality and done. Meanwhile, every minute he spends guessing at the UX is a minute he didn't spend on his own story points. I have a zillion screenshots like this, mostly worse than what's being said here, and mostly from engineers, agile coaches, and scrum masters. This is not the path to improving agility. This is not the path to our highest priority is customer satisfaction. I'm doing everything I can, but I can't keep others from burning the bridge on their side. If you really didn't know about the user-centered design process, its phases and tasks, then there's a 100% chance that you will incorrectly estimate the time I need to do my work. Yet everywhere I've worked, other people guess at the time I need and surprise me at the kickoff meeting. These incorrect estimations lead to interpersonal conflicts, projects appearing to be derailed or stalled by CX, and rushing to push out a design that might still be quite flawed, not having received enough iterations or testing. Product, project, portfolio, program, whatever you're doing there, should bring CX into earliest discussions so that projects have the right budgets and timelines from the start. Agile teams should include the CX teammate in planning and estimations. Estimating our time is part of our strategic approach to a project. This common template for sprint goals says our focus is on achievement or outcome. We believe it delivers benefit or impact to customer. This will be confirmed when event happens. Supposedly, this helps team focus on users and outcomes, but that's not a guarantee, mostly because of one risky word here. Did you spot it? Believe. Imagine work goals being based on something someone believes, a guess or assumption. Shouldn't we know it delivers certain benefits because the concept has been validated and vetted before we're planning engineering sprints around it? Believing, assuming, and being reactive aren't agile or lean. Six Sigma would be ashamed of you. Every time Agile says they want feedback from customers or they want to know if users find value in the features, Agile's talking about CX research work. Our researchers generate knowledge and data about people and systems. They run studies to evaluate concepts. Every time we notice we are guessing, assuming, hypothesizing, making things up, or working based on what someone believes, we should let CX researchers study whatever it is so we can know. Quick reminder, this was a viral video a few years ago where someone had installed an automatic soap dispenser over a power outlet so that when you plug in or go to plug in your power, your hand and power plug are covered with nice wet soap, just as you're connecting to live electricity. And it said, this is the reason we do integration testing as well as unit testing. It's a good engineering joke, but it's true for us too. This is why CX architects and tests complete workflows rather than separate pieces in isolation. Imagine if someone could test a prototype of a soap dispenser over a power outlet. That would have been a lot of labor and human pain saved. So just remember that we do tend to need the bigger picture of whatever the customer or user's workflow, process, or task are in the product. We can't just build tiny pieces and throw them over to engineering. We have to get that bigger picture, just like the idea of integration testing. Not everything we do always requires a giant runway or lots of time, but when something does call for that, it's important to be planning that ahead of time so we can get the time that we need, and engineering understands the timing of all that. So looking back at our sprint goals, imagine if sprint goals looked more like this. Our focus is on user or customer outcome. CX and UX have confirmed that it delivers a certain benefit to a customer. This benefit will be measured by KPI metric. In the old version, we're hoping to later confirm that there was a benefit to the customer. There might not have been, and you will find that out really late and after a lot of expensive engineering time. CX can confirm that earlier. Now we're not hoping to find out later if something delivered benefits to customers. Now we're just going to measure how much success or failure we had. Traditional flavors of Agile are correct in saying that we must collect feedback from customers to know if our product has value or is considered high quality by users. But Agile and the MVP model tend to imagine that we have to collect that feedback after releasing our products when risks and costs are highest. Since Agile tends to exclude CX and UX processes and professionals, Agile doesn't realize that we can get that feedback through early concept testing of CX prototypes. Teams claiming to be Agile burn time and money to learn very late in the game that we've gone in the wrong direction. Learning this late that we need to fix or rework our product is really waterfall in disguise. Agile can pride itself on doing smaller batches of work and releasing products more frequently. But if you're continuously releasing garbage and not finding flaws until weeks or months later, your boat has just gone over the waterfall. The earliest moments of project planning must already be focused on customers' needs. CX teammates should be part of project planning before we approve features that have low or no customer value. We used to do this. It was called R&D, research and development. Someone decided that R&D wasn't as cool as pretending that we were a startup and just rushing out guesses. Focusing on faster has lowered product quality and customer satisfaction. Think of CX as your lower cost and faster R&D team. If you have an R&D team, we'd love to partner with them. We must get back to believing in R&D and R before D. I can show you this graphic on how CX needs to be 2 or more sprints ahead of engineering. I can tell you about how CX needs to start before engineering because if we're populating the backlog with finalized designs, we have to start ahead of you. I can call what we do working in sprints. I can call it days. I wrote a whole book on this. I can show you a variety of models of how CX and UX work with Agile, but I can make this really easy for you because all 7 models on this screen say the same thing. CX is on its own track. We're not working on the same stories engineering is working on in the same sprint. We're at least 2 sprints ahead, preferably 4 or more. Once you can accept that Agile is about a predictable and reliable assembly line, we can all exhale, put CX on its own track, cut the conflict and control, and get back to work. I know of no flavor of Agile handling CX or UX correctly. When I try to adjust Agile for customer centricity, I'm the square peg being thrown off the board for lack of compliance and agreement. Using SAFe as an example, you can't write customer centricity on a model, but have nothing in place and no process or specialists that support and shepherd customer centricity. You shouldn't write design thinking on anything because it's an Aspirology that isn't considered a UX process. UX is siloed on the side with random things SAFe doesn't know what to do with. Is UX anything like milestones, vision, metrics, or roadmap? SAFe doesn't really know what UX is or even does. And nobody puts UX in the corner. SAFe Agile has claimed to use the Lean UX model since 2017. Lean UX was widely hated and disregarded by CX and UX professionals. The model is non-viable, and I consider it an Aspirology. I have never heard of a UX team doing Lean UX. CX and UX should be lean, and I like to bring in elements from Toyota's definition of lean and Lean Six Sigma into my CX and UX strategies and tactics. But it sounds like SAFe saw the word lean in the Lean UX book title, took their critical thinking hats off, and never noticed that Lean UX is neither lean nor UX. Interestingly, on May 11th, 2021, literally days ago, the author of Lean UX tweeted that he has no idea how his own model works with SAFe Agile. It's nice that he said something, but he's 4 years late. He wrote a blog post about how SAFe isn't agile at all and just doesn't work. One of his reasons was that he was unable to build customer centricity into it. If he tries to help companies modify SAFe, that's a big problem, since that company's SAFe trainers and consultants want them to do things by the book. I and many others still don't like the Lean UX book or model, but at least the author is finally speaking out publicly about agility and customer centricity not being combined enough. That means you'll have to be agile about agile. And don't assume that anything waving a customer centricity flag has anything in their model that is customer centric. So here's how to make agile truly customer centric. Number 1, build a world-class CX team of well-qualified practitioners. This is harder than it sounds because since most companies don't understand CX or UX, they just hire the person with the portfolio of pretty screens. They have no idea they were supposed to look for skills or abilities outside of art. That means I'd like to please direct you to my new and completely free training program for HR recruiters and hiring managers on my Delta CX Academy website. 2, understand that CX's main role is customer research, advocacy, and shepherding customer value. We care about the business, but we often feel like we're the only people truly caring about customers. When everybody is customer-centric, CX and UX won't look like lone weirdos we accuse of not speaking the business's language. We need more people to speak the customer's language. Step 3, CX is part of our strategic approach to product. Start with research and solid knowledge on all of the people who will use or interact with this product in any way. Then CX are collaborators to help shepherd customer value in requirements and user stories. CX estimates their own time early in project planning, way before kickoff. And we get that time because people who care about agile, lean, and customer satisfaction recognize that getting our product right earlier pays off in time, money, morale, and more. Step 4, easy step 4, shift away from broken models and processes. The MVP is broken, but scrum.org has an article. Can someone please mute? Scrum.org has an article saying that the minimum viable product would be improved if we called it minimal inspectable increment. That's not customer-centric. It shows that old ways need complete reinvention, not slight renaming. Customers don't want something minimally viable. You don't. Stop holding Aspirology workshops glorifying guessing and stop building MVPs. Step 5, it doesn't ship if our target customers wouldn't see it as 5-star quality. Cut lean waste early. Scrap bad concepts before they're built. Product doesn't ship if it's not completely intuitive and usable by all customers. It doesn't ship if people with visual, mobility, hearing, cognitive issues, or other disabilities can't easily use it. Step 6, don't force CX to work the way engineering wants engineering to work. There are ways to bring different domains together on a cross-functional team that don't require every domain to operate the way one domain has chosen to run their own ship. Step 7, One practitioner or a paired CX architect team, as my Delta CX model suggests, is on the Agile or Scrum feature team, not as an outside consultant that you talk to when you're not sure where to put a button. Putting us on the team breaks down silos. Make sure there are project and team charters so everybody knows what each person is responsible for and what each role's boundaries are. And finally, hold everybody accountable. Every CX worker must be held accountable for their work and their part of a project. When a project experiences failure or customers are complaining, we have to look at where all of us failed. Taking action. We have to drop faster, 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 and work smarter. We must proactively recognize and mitigate risk. Better planning up front. Throw away surveys and guesses about who users are and what we imagine they need. Better qualitative research data helps us make better customer, product, and feature decisions. Better strategies, initiatives, and tactical approaches. I haven't found anything in Agile or Lean that says do not spend extra time up front to do a better job the first time. Agile welcomes customer feedback driven requirements and changing as we need to. Lean welcomes recognizing problems early, understanding their root causes, and eliminating wastes and defects in both our internal processes and the user's experiences. Architecting for customers' needs and tasks and being agile shouldn't be the polar opposites they often are now. No matter what an agile coach, scrum master, or stakeholder declares, the customer decides what is quality, done, and good enough. If you don't use their definitions, you're going to have to deal later with failures. All the mindsets and ceremonies on the planet won't matter if we're not delivering products that are easy to learn, easy to use, and matching customers' needs. Joe Rohde, recently retired senior vice president at Walt Disney Imagineering, said a few years ago, "One should not be asking the question, how little can we get away with, but rather, how much can we afford to do to be really impressive?" This is the quote to hang on the wall. And it's how we start reinventing the customer experience. And that's it. 45 minutes. Did it. So you can check out more of my world on deltacx.com. Again, we do projects, training, speaking. We help clients with their customer centricity and improving their agility with customer centricity. There's a mountain of stuff. Poke around Delta CX. But I will stop sharing my screen and let's take a look at chat and other things and see what kinds of questions people have. Nobody wrote anything in chat.
No, Debbie, that's
crickets.
Not it. Yeah.
Crickets.
So does anyone have questions for Debbie?
Yeah, can I ask just a verbal question?
Why not?
Oh,
hi,
sorry,
Casey.
I'm facing the wrong camera. I have a question. You said earlier about how CX needs to be early on in the planning where, maybe a couple sprints before. This might be a little bit more of a general question, but I always wonder, how do teams manage, like if you're supposed to be a cross-functional team with everybody working together on the same work at the same time, is how I sort of understood it, then how do you manage breaking it up where, in one sprint, you might have it be mostly CX work, and then later on in another sprint, more development work? Like, how do you make it more cross-functional in every sprint while still achieving that?
Yeah, super question. And so to me, the magic sauce there is, first of all, in the early planning, let's say we have a project and I say, you know what, I'm going to need 3 sprints to do that. And let's say engineering says, oh my gosh, we're going to need 3, 4, 5, whatever sprints. I'm just making up numbers, to build, code, test, merge, deploy, whatever it might be. So the idea is that we need to start ahead of time so that engineering is, so that when we're done, engineering now has a populated backlog that product has prioritized and it's ready for action. So the idea there is that we, UX and CX, can still be sprinting along. We're just going to be working on different things at the same time. So my sprint 1 or somebody's sprint 1 might be, I'm starting my research to make sure we're building the right things for customers or to inform what I'm going to design. Engineering might still be finishing up the previous block of work. So I think that we have to, if we don't think about these hard you know, I'm a musician, hard bar lines in songs, then the idea might, I don't know if you're a musician too, but I think the idea is if we think of this as kind of a continuous universe, then engineering can be finishing up some things that they're working on from a previous feature or story. We're starting that next feature or story, but we're still collaborators, because when engineering comes to me and says, hey, I'm working on your last feature, but there's an ambiguity, there's something I don't understand in the designs, we found a problem, something like that, then of course I'm going to help them immediately. And I advise all UX people to drop what you're doing and make an engineering question a top priority. But ultimately, I think that we're going to need to imagine this is kind of happening on two tracks, where there are sprints and there are time boxes and there are retros and there are milestones and different points. But that because we work differently, I don't think of saying like, I must have something ready to showcase in a week. You know, sometimes some of my work takes longer. So I think the idea is strategically to have these on tracks, but like good harmony in music, just finding ways that we are moving along together. We're just a little bit ahead of everybody, so that when we have something ready to go, and again, it doesn't have to be big design up front. I don't need 5 months ahead of you. I might need just a few sprints. So that, and if things can be broken up into pieces, I will feed them to engineering as I go, but sometimes we just have to research a larger piece with people, build that piece and test that piece before we can say to engineering, we're confident you'll only need to build this once.
Okay. So just sort of sounds like better planning and coordinating of those sprints and between projects.
Absolutely. And being able to shake off the idea that we all have to work on the same thing at the same time, because even product isn't necessarily working on the same thing at the same time. They had to come up with a roadmap before everybody started coding, and nobody freaked out and told them they weren't agile and lean. So there are things that are happening at different points of these processes that just happen to not necessarily be in engineering's domain, but are related. We're also going to have marketing talking to us at some point. What are y'all building? How are we going to market this thing? What are some of the messages? Tell us the key features. So there's all kinds of people who come in and out of this, but to me, they're all kind of on their own tracks because they're not following engineering's pattern of dev and QA and things like that. I hope that helps.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. I saw something pop up in the chat. Adam, a prioritized backlog of features. Do the delivery teams breaking down into smaller pieces of work? Yeah.
I typed too fast, but you get the idea, right? Are you saying that
I think I get the idea.
The
It doesn't have to be the whole thing. It really depends on what the stories or features are. Normally to us, the smallest piece that we can work on is the users or customers' task or workflow. So for example, imagine logging into a website. The user doesn't see logging into a website as just a password. So I can't just design a password field and throw it over to engineering. The user's going to see that process as username, password, oops, I forgot it, the whole thing of forgetting the password. I want to build that piece and then I want to give it to you. So I don't have to build the entire website or the entire product, but we do have to break these things down into pieces that make sense for the way UX sees things.
Yeah,
and in some cases, they're parallel to QA.
I think I understand that. I think that I could see how some people might interpret the message you're sending, though, is that the teams are not part of designing their own work product and are fully divorced. Because I'm having a side chat with some folks who are thinking, hey, is Debbie really pitching like big design up front? And I don't think that's the case. I think you're taking a position, but I don't think that there's an enormous chasm between.
Let's talk about that. So big design up front is a great example of negative framing. And it's where somebody decided that something I need to do is bad and wrong because it takes time. I mean, to me, that is the definition of big design up front. Someone decided Debbie's process just shouldn't happen. Debbie needs too much time to produce good work. So we're going to call it big design up front and teach you that it's something you don't like and you don't want. And I would say, consider that you have been brainwashed and that it's not necessarily big design up up front, but it wouldn't make sense for me to say, hey, Adam, don't bother QAing this. Our developers are really good. Just get it out. You'd be like, no, wait a minute. We should really QA. We have a process as well, but somehow when we want time, we're told we're rock stars, ivory tower, big design up front. And I say, throw away these words that are making us have conflicts and freaking hate each other. It's why UX tends to hide in a silo, because we feel so disrespected by people who say, oh, you actually want to research with customers, understand what they need and build the right thing? That's big design up front. You're not agile. And it's killing teams. And so do I believe in big design up front? No, I believe in the right amount of user-centered design happening before engineering writes a line of code. How much that is going to depend on the product, feature, project, whatever it might be. But that's why someone has to collaborate with us and stop guessing our time and stop disrespecting us by saying this process is big design up front. Because we could draw something like this for engineering and no one would go, oh, engineering needs back-end architecture and DevOps and security and QA. What a bunch of jerks. And so I say we've got to burn all this down and try to actually get along.
I really liked the other thing that stuck with me that I liked was when you're talking about sprint goals and that word believe, right? Like, I want to give teams freedom, but like, again, what's our hypothesis, right? Let's have an idea and expectation. I mean, maybe it's not as validated as some of my UX CX peers might like, but like, it's got to be more than just like, I don't know, it's going to make us feel good. Like, no, like what is the metric that we're going to drive to? Even if it's binary, like we do this bad now and we want to do it better later, like that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, and what I remind people is, my joke is hypothesis is Greek for guessing. You know, that's the difference between hypothesis and theory. Theory has been validated. Hypothesis is we're still guessing. And I tell people, when you are guessing, talk to a CX research expert or a UX research expert. I don't always need 42 months to do something. There's amazing crap that I can sometimes whip up in a day, a few days, maybe a week or two. It really depends. And sometimes I do need a few sprints. But if you talk to us ahead of time and say, this is something we don't know, we're hypothesizing here, we're guessing that this is going to solve the customer's need. It's our job to say, is that really the customer's need? We need to take a look at this.
So hypothesis is two-week term or 2 week a thought process.
Because we still don't know. There's knowing and there's hypothesizing. You know, I like to joke, empathy, knowledge, and action. It's nice if you care about people, but what do you really know and what action are you taking? So hypothesis is usually still not based in knowledge. It's often, oh, I know the customer and they're probably going to want this. And I say, look out for that BS, because the problem is, especially if you're not collecting feedback more proactively, by the time marketing runs some BS survey, because we don't run surveys, by the time marketing runs some BS survey in 2-3 months, like, customers are already burning customer support time, leaving, tweeting crap about you. You know, there's so much shrapnel from a product that is flawed or bad. And y'all know this because y'all use crappy things all damn day long. And you wonder what happened on that team that they didn't release something better for you. Why do I want to throw my phone out the window? Why do I want to throw my computer out the window? We have to build better things, even if not just for the selfishness of, wow, I hate when people release crap to me. They were hypothesizing too much. Uh-oh, we got Charlene. I'm in trouble.
Yes, this is a good conversation, and I really appreciate you, Debbie. There is one more question that is in the chat channel, but I just want to let everyone know that it's 11:55. We're planning to end at 11:55, and everybody is going to take a lunch break. So since we do not have a speaker coming up, we can continue to stay on the channel and you can address this next question.
I will talk through lunch if Charlene lets me, though I am going live on YouTube in a half hour, so that is my hard stop. Nick says, quality over speed is terrifying to me. I know. What do we do when people are buying the competition's MVP tree swing and stealing our market share while we make a roller coaster? Well, first of all, are they really? You know, what do we really know about that? If we are losing to the competition, are we sure we're losing to the competition because they built a better MVP, or because they had a better experience, they had better features, they were a better match to the customer. I don't necessarily believe that competition goes somewhere because of an MVP. They're going because it filled their needs. That's the bottom line. Fill my unmet needs, improve my tasks, make this easier to learn or easier to use, and you're probably going to get that business. So I think it's probably more of a better mousetrap than the fact that they built an MVP and you built a roller coaster. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with coming out with a smaller version 1, or I'm old enough to remember beta versions. But the problem with the MVP is that most customers don't want M, and they definitely want V, but they don't really want MV. And so in UX, we typically say minimum valuable product. If we can get focused on what the customers value and where are the opportunities to meet those unmet needs, that is where we can end up getting that market share. Now, we do this through observational research and something called task analysis and optimized task flow. Do not Google task analysis. You will end up on Medium with a bunch of boot campers who say it's how to paint a room in 8 steps. Not. Please go to the micro lessons playlist in my YouTube channel and watch it there. I have ads turned off. It's free. How does Delta CX deal with soft attributes of customers like familiarity and loyalty if quality means slower releases? And I'm not sure quality has to mean slower releases, because I've worked with companies where they have 14 CX researchers. These people are constantly running. They're on a cadence. They are constantly researching and testing stuff. If you were to staff up in CX and UX the way you staffed up in developers and engineers, you wouldn't feel like, oh, now I gotta wait for Debbie. All right, she needs 2 months. That's only because we thought we just had to hire one Debbie. And chances are we hired an artist who wrote UX on their resume, and they don't know a lot about most of this. And I'm on fire about that too. So if we knew how to assess the right candidates and we hired someone strong in research, and there are wonderfully strong researchers out there with experience, these people are strategic. Remember my phases of proficiency? They're strategic, they're scientific, they've got their technique, they hit the ground running, and you are not necessarily waiting for squillions of sprints while they do this. This can move faster than you think, but you're gonna have to staff up and invest in it. You can't get one mid-level freelancer with 1.5 years of experience and expect them to help you beat the competition. I love working with juniors and newbies, but they have to be coached by seniors and leads. And if you have something that is mission critical, I probably wouldn't put a newbie on it, as much as I love newbies and hire them into my own company. So Nick, I might run out of time, or I might keep you from lunch. But I think number one is stop being afraid. You should be more afraid of why are we losing to the competition than is it called an MVP, or are we going too slow? I mean, when I think about the services and companies that I love the most, I love them because their releases are freaking good. You know, the funny thing is everybody, well, maybe not me, but most people love Apple. I'm Windows and Android because I'm just a nerd, but everybody loves Apple and everybody quotes Steve Jobs all day long. Apple spends squillions on R&D. They invest so much into researching and understanding people so that they can deliberately design and architect for people's needs. And then they put out an iPhone once a year and nobody goes, oh, waterfall. Everybody goes, oh, Apple. Oh my God, Apple. And so while I don't think we should copy Apple, and I'm not saying waterfall, and I'm not saying put out one thing a year, I definitely do believe in Agile, but I'm more of an Agile purist. I believe in what Agile intended to be X years ago. I believe in what Lean and Lean Six Sigma intended to be, though without some of the analysis paralysis. So I think that this is something that has to be planned better. But if you don't have senior UX or CX people at your company who have at least 6 or more years in this, and I don't mean they're artists and they like to make wireframes. I mean people like me who are strategists and come at this from another direction. Then this is very scary. But ultimately, it's more terrifying to me that you think quality over speed is terrifying. What is going on in the culture at your company that making a better product is scary? Putting out a crappy product should be scary. Losing to the competition because you're not building the right things for your customers, that should be scary, because that would be my guess. My guess is you're losing to the competition because you're not building the right things that people need. It's not as user-friendly as you think. It's not easy to learn and easy to use, and filling it with tool tips and how-tos and pop-ups and chats and chatbots. The last woman said chatbots. No offense, she was lovely. I liked her stripy shirt, but UX doesn't believe in that. Because if that doesn't really give people the help that they need, then the chatbot is not acceptable. But to us, we're one step before that. Why did they need the chatbot? What went wrong in that app, system, whatever, that they even needed a chatbot? That by the time you need the chatbot, the 4 horsemen of bad UX have arrived. My registered trademark: frustration, confusion, disappointment, and distraction. They shall summon the apocalypse. By the time someone needs a chatbot or customer support or their support rep or their dedicated whoever, or they're leaving you bad reviews on things, you are so late. You are late and reactive. And right now that seems to be built into Agile and the MVP, and I'm trying to undo it. And I understand there's resistance, but hopefully you can see the benefit of it. Adam says, don't hide the flame. Okay, I'll run the flames. Yeah, there's a lot of ugly stuff that's going on out there, and I've got to burn it down. I think workshops are stupid for the most part. I think there's ways to collaborate that don't require you to sit in a room for a week and play games. I just don't. I'm not a game player. I'm a musician. So Tia asks, what was Safe's response to Jeff? I didn't see one. I also didn't look for one, but I didn't see one. But that's going to get interesting pretty fast. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what Safe will say, because I've been writing to Safe. Well, let's see, I've been asking Safe since 2014 how UX fits into Agile. At the time, they said, we don't know. Let us know if you figure it out. And then after that, they said UX was a UX architect is a collaborator at the program level. A UX designer is working at the what's below program. I'm forgetting right now. Who has the Safe thing memorized? I failed the test. I took 4 days of training and failed the test because I was so angry. And then a UX architect is on the feature team. They actually had that. If you go back into the Safe archives, it's there. And then they ran into Lean UX and said, oh yes, pull these people off everything. They're out in this like side box. And I've been trying to get them to undo that for years. And it hasn't happened. So the only thing I can think of is I'm just going to have to come out with my own flavor of Agile that says, if you freaking care about customers, here's how you do it. Because I can't seem to get anybody to jump on that bus with me. Nick says, great answer and thanks. This sounds promising. And Nick, please reach out to me personally. I am trying to help people everywhere I can. I do this talk privately at companies. Sometimes people bring me in to consult so that I can help everybody glue things together and stop a lot of the conflict and the fear, because ultimately that your fear is to me a cultural problem. Like, to me, it starts with a cultural problem, and then it's also a process problem, because someone taught you that Agile welcomes change even late in the game and then told you to be afraid of change. So mixed message, mommy. I'm happy to talk for a few more minutes before I set up for my YouTube stuff. I'm already set up. I'm in front of the green screen, put on a little concealer. I'm ready for action. Got my cup of water. So if anybody wants a few more questions, I'm happy to take them. And then I'm going to be jumping over to YouTube. On Fridays, I do Deb Reacts to Crazy Crap. But Tuesdays, you might want to join me on Tuesdays, which I do 12:30 p.m. Everything is always 12:30 p.m. Virginia time for those of you on the East Coast. Every Tuesday, I do office hours, Ask Me Anything. And I sit there for an hour live on YouTube and I take questions. And I also allow you to ask questions anonymously. So if you don't want everybody to see your Nick and Casey and Adam and Tia, I've got an anonymous question system as well. But I welcome these questions. We have to have these conversations. We're sitting there being afraid of each other and calling each other names and going, ooh, Deb wants to research stuff. There's big design up front. I'm doing a project right now for $100 million e-commerce company. They wanted better landing pages. I could come in and guess at landing pages. I've been doing e-commerce since 1997. I might have some good ideas. But instead, we did an observational research study with 27 people. We had B2B and B2C, and we had people who'd been on their website before and people who'd never been on their website before. And I'm only telling you this because you probably don't know people do this. And we met in Zoom for an hour, 27 different people from around America, and we gave them a task to shop for this thing online, and we watched how they do it. So we learned their decision-making process, who approves stuff, how do they budget for this, how do they look at Google search results and decide what they trust and what they don't, how are they going to pick an item, how do they shop across multiple sites, which site looked good to them, which site looked bad to them, which item looked good to them, which item looked bad to them. Somebody please mute. Somebody please mute. Somebody. Everyone please mute. Thank you. This is the type of stuff we do. Yeah, it's taken us a few weeks. I mean, to plan and meet 27 people and then analyze and synthesize the data of an hour of 27 hours of video is definitely not a short research project. There are things I can do in a half a day, and this isn't that. But the reality is when we are done, we are going to have so much competitive intelligence for that client because we watch them on competitor site, we watch them on this site, we watch their process even before they get to the site. We interviewed them about what they do before that. And so we should be able to build a killer landing page, even though that seems like such a small project. And then we're going to metrics the hell out of this. These people have amazing Google Analytics setup. We're going to know exactly if this is working or not, and we're going to know why. So we are applying that full user-centered design process to let's have a better landing page. And I'm not saying we have to do that every time. We don't do that every time, but this is a great example of where something that seems like something small that marketing cares about or something else cares about, and they would just A/B test it until they got 0.1% improvement. We could freaking kill this. And for people like Nick, we can figure out, we know the whys. I know why they like the competitor better. I know every single thing they loved about the competitor and every single thing they hated about you. We had people say, I don't like this company's logo. I mean, like, we heard it all. Now, that doesn't mean you run out and change your logo, but it's still interesting information to have. And I will probably end up with an 80-page report for them and a monster amount of stuff. And you will freaking know. And you will stop hypothesizing. You will stop guessing. And you will stop wondering, what does this customer see as quality? What could we do better on this page? Right now, everybody at your company's guessing. Marketing guesses, sales guesses. All y'all in engineering are guessing. Product is often guessing. Business analysts are often guessing because they just heard it from the stakeholder. Imagine a world where we are all customer-centric. And then y'all just give me the time to do my best work. What's my YouTube? Delta CX. Won't you please usability test the subscribe button and ring the bell? And empathize with the like button, which is a joke, because I think the whole empathy thing is overdone. Empathy now no longer means empathy. So my boyfriend wrote that joke. Empathize with the like button. Usability test the subscribe button. We just passed 2,000 subscribers, which I'm really proud of because I didn't buy any of them. So yeah, and you can also go to deltacx.link/events. I have a whole bunch of, Delta CX is my link shortener, deltacx.link/HR training for my HR training. Where am I? Events will give you the YouTube calendar of all the live stuff we're doing. Ask is the anonymous way to ask questions. And sometimes we do giveaways. This month, I'm giving away the information architecture book I didn't write. So there's lots of fun stuff on the YouTube channel, and we even have a custom written theme song. So I'll be there in 25 minutes, 20 minutes. Deb reacts to weird stuff people send in for me to react to. So it's a bit of a Friday wind down, fun stuff. But if you really want to laugh, and we laughed until we cried. Episode 108 was what isn't design thinking? And I'm so glad I don't wear mascara because we freaking cried. That one was so damn funny. And it was the premiere of my theme song. Any other last questions? Because I really do want to help everybody. And I know, like Nick said and Casey and other people said, this is tough. This is tough to get your head around, especially because no Agile coach told you this. No Scrum Master told you this. No product owner told you this. Nobody told you this. They all said, UX are artsy fartsy hipsters who like to draw screens, and you could do that too. So, you know, just do it. If not, we'll switch to karaoke. Okay.
Thank you, Debbie. Doesn't seem like there's additional questions in the chat. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, thanks, Richmond. You've been wonderful.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Y'all have a great day.
Bye.
And go enjoy some lunch. See you back at 1 o'clock.
Be safe.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.